Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the sins of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. That's Exodus, the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 5 from, well, you probably figured this part out. It's also the first thing I thought of when I found out that you, Salem Lasher, and I were scheduled for a wrestling match presented by Northern Lights Wrestling, December 15th, in the Eagles Foe, whatever a foe is, in St. Paul, Minnesota. I confess something very similar to nostalgia clutched under the black space that used to be my heart when I heard all of that, because in that very venue, not that many years ago, your father, Logan Lasher, Lethal X himself, now retired but absolutely iconic, and I, Tommy the SpiderBaby Saturday, used to engage in, I believe the technical term is a feud, over a prize no less biblical than the Northern Lights Wrestling Tag Team Championship. Your dad on one side, me on the other side. Sometimes the fans cheering for me, sometimes the fans cheering for him, but always caring enormously. But none more so than this little voice that I would hear from the front row through most of those matches. And the voice would say things, the voice would wait until I was in the ring with Logan Lasher, and he was dutifully pounding my face, pounding the old moneymaker into SpiderBaby powder. And I would hear, "That's the way, Dad. Give him the what for. Show him the cut of your jib." And to the extent that I could think anything in that moment of agony, I found myself thinking, that must be Logan Lasher's son. And Logan Lasher's son sounds exactly like Oliver Twist. But regardless of that, those words had an effect, because those punches became even more powerful. And the SpiderBaby powder that my moneymaker had been transformed into got beat into even finer powder. Thanks to you. Thanks to you, young Salem Lasher. And to this day, when the temperature drops below a certain point, whether it's in St. Paul, Minnesota, or my hometown of Mystic, Connecticut, those old aches rise like ghosts and remind me that my hatred for your father hasn't abated at all since his retirement. And in recent weeks, those ghosts have begun whispering to me, and they told me something that I hadn't thought of myself. And I said to the ghosts, "Oh, that's too mean even for me." And they said, "Really?" And I said, "I'm the world's wickedest wrestler. Of course not, you dumb ghosts." What they told me, Salem, was this: there's no better way to torture your father than to get his pride and joy into the center of that spider's web. You might think of it as a wrestling ring. And force him at ringside, or via virtual, some virtual rearrangement. Speaking of rearrangement, so I rearranged that moneymaker of yours, and I pound it into powder. And there's nothing he can do except watch. And then, young Salem Lasher, I might just twist your body into the shape of a Christmas wreath, and will force your father to sit there and do nothing while I end his wrestling legacy before it's even had a chance to launch. And while your throat is producing sounds that would embarrass front row lasher of just a few years ago, you might find yourself, to the extent that you can think at all, wondering, what brought me to this place? What delivered me to this grief? And I can assure you, it's not the sins of your father. It's just nostalgia.